Hello, we are Geeks Assembled, and today we are discussing a 1973 movie, a sci-fi fantasy adventure movie set in an amusement, not an amusement park, but a vacation where you go in an experience of either a medieval world, Roman world, but this time it's Westworld. Um, Starring Richard Benjamin, Tim Bowen, and of course Will Depp as the gunslinger. Not as Susan, we kept calling him yesterday, telesurveillist. When we were talking,
You'll burn our notes.
she got the bald-headed guy mixed up. But yeah, Hulbrin as the gunslinger. So we're going to go with opening thoughts on the movie Westworld. Tim, over to you.
Well, opening thoughts. I haven't seen this in about I don't know, quite a long time. I saw it several times when I was about 10, and I thought it was really neato, and it was a cool movie then. But when you look at it now, it looks fun, and the effects are all good and everything still, but the ideas are just so not far out anymore. You know what I mean? Because we've got robots now, and we've got everything that was futuristic in 1973. We've already passed it, so it's kind of, I mean, it's still a good movie, but it's kind of hard to take it seriously because you're just kind of like, okay. I mean, if you were a kid today of 9 or 10, you'd be like, what's the big deal? I mean, I get, so I mean, it's a great, chase movie. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's only 90 minutes, which is really good. I mean, that, if you started to get into 2 hours, you find it really boring. I like that the whole system shuts down and all the robots just start killing people in all the zones. And that's like, wow, how do you get out of that? They should have had some kind of fail-safe mechanism. But even then too, the guys, the shirts in charge kind of just get locked in their own room and can't get out. So it's a nice little movie. It's a nice little chase movie in a way. And the ending kind of leaves you there like, okay, what does he do now? Like, I mean, how do you get out of this situation? But I don't know. It was a really good movie in its time. A great movie, for teenagers, I guess, and adults. But again, I think the ideas are kind of passe at this point. But that's going to happen with any movie that's predicting the future. It gets it kind of right in a lot of ways because we do have robots now, and computers and everything. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to revisit after like 40 years.
Time flies. We'll go over to Susan now with her opening thoughts.
Wow, sorry, I thought I was muting to cough, but I unmuted just to cough. That I apologize, guys. Yeah, deeply unprofessional. Kind of like Control. This movie was about an amusement park, an amusement resort gone completely off the rails. And Tim's right. We got all the robots. We got all the amusements. We got all the computers. We got all the hovercrafts. We got all the fun toys now. And so what's to say this doesn't happen now? Except for, people usually when they engage with sex with a robot, they usually buy one and bring it home. There is a lot of there isn't a lot of that whole, Blade Runner type thing happening right now because people don't really, they don't really want what they do, their lifestyle to be out there in front of people. And the gunslinger inspired so many other things. Holy crap. It's like it inspired like the Terminator, it inspired Data, it inspired a bunch of the modern sort of android things ideas came from Michael Crichton. And the whole movie was basically redone with like dinosaurs. Michael Crichton rewrote his idea of an amusement resort gone off the rails in Jurassic Park. And so there's a lot of little connections there, and it sort of feels like a Western, except for when you cut to Control. When you cut back to Control, you want to stay there and you want to see all of what the computers are doing, what the people are doing, how they're manipulating things. But then it goes right back to the Westworld and the story of these two visitors. So that it's really intriguing, and I think they got the balance right in Jurassic Park. This one, because of how it leaves you hanging both places. Well, it actually doesn't leave you hanging when you're talking about the two characters. When you're talking about what's his name, John Blaine and Peter Martin. You're not all. I didn't all invest in them. They weren't like heroes or villains or something. They were just kind of. Anyway, without the investment, I kind of wanted to hang out with Control. Anyway, back over to you, Lee.
I wanted to hang out with the gunslinger.
I bet you did.
Well, I mean, it is an iconic character. I mean, he didn't have many lines. Yulbrynner was gonna stated that he only took the role because he needed the money. He's and the way he dressed was identical to the character he played in The Magnificent Seven. I don't know if the filmmakers' costume department did that on purpose, or it might have been Brynner's idea. I don't know, but it was nearly identical to the costume he wore in Magnificent Seven. For me, it's every time the gunslinger's on the screen what made this movie. It was just the way he looks at them and the way he strutted. It was just brilliantly done. And then I agree with what Susan says. The two main characters in this movie, James Brolin and Richard Benjamin, I couldn't care less about them. There wasn't that. I don't know. There was no spark for me to watching them. That's why I cared more about what the gunslinger was doing.
I think you're right in a way, but they were supposed to be like Joe Sixpack type characters. They're just like everyday Joes, and they did try a little development with the Benjamin character. Say he just broke up with his wife or whatever, and she took the money or whatever. But I think it's good that they didn't bog the movie down with a bunch of character development, because by an hour in, he's already on the run, on the hunt. But you're right. I think that the gunslinger is the most developed one because he's so single-minded. He's so on his purpose. He's going to get that guy for whatever reason. He's going to get that guy. He's going to chase him through all the other amusements. I mean, like he goes through the Roman world chasing him, right? So I mean,
I can see what you mean. That it would have bogged the story down if they did develop the characters more. But as I say, when James Brolin's character died by the hands of the gunslinger, I felt nothing for him, to be honest. As he was laid there in his own blood. But I just as well as as you say, the gunslinger is so determined as well. As you said, Tim, he follows him through the different zones. But you notice as well the view from the android's point of view, all the pixelated camera, the view. Apparently, this was the first time this was ever used in a movie. Yeah, so so it was groundbreaking in that way, I suppose. And I never realised until you mentioned it, Susan, about the connection sort of with Jurassic Park. I know Crichton directed and wrote this, and he did Jurassic Park and all that. But and then you've just mentioned the similarities about the theme park, and oh yeah, is it is he a one-trick pony? Quick, lawyers.
Didn't he?
Yeah, it's as I say, as you say, it's the science of the movie now is dated because we've got most of the science what's in the movie. But that, as Tim said, that's what happens to all science fiction movies from the past. Science fiction becomes fiction. That's fact, should I say? Science fiction becomes fact. But yeah, and I agree, it doesn't overstay. It's 90 minutes is long enough for this, because if it did go longer than this, I don't know, I'd have been wouldn't have been too happy. But this movie was so successful. They had a sequel, Future World, about 3-4 years later, and it also had 2 TV series sequels in the 80s. I think it was called Beyond Westworld, and just about 5 years ago, a new updated version, rebooted Westworld, which started off okay, but sort of went downhill after the second season. But so should we go favourite moments and things what was not so keen on? Well, let's go to Susan first.
Okay, so Crichton did things like he did create ER. He did do other things. He did Congo. He did Outbreak. He did, or the one that's about the outbreak anywhere. And he did, anyway, he did a bunch of different things. But his they were trying to remake this one with Schwarzenegger. I think I remember hearing that, but it didn't like hate. I don't know. Anyway, it could have been, it could have not have been. Yeah. So my favorite moments are in Control, where they are fixing the robots and they're trying to solve the computer virus, which is fun because that's like, isn't that like the first time they mention a computer virus?
Could be. It could be, yeah.
Anyway, they just needed AVG or Norton or McAfee. They just needed those antivirus programs. This is why the present is less dangerous than the science fiction story. I like what you were saying, Lee, but about it becoming just fiction or even fact. But we put in safeguards, fail safes, as you were saying. So yeah, but it is dangerous to be with robots that went during a robot uprising. And so that's fun. And I guess the other point that I really liked is when they're is from the gunslinger's point of view, all like how it starts off just like sort of fuzzy, and then it becomes really clear and stuff when he goes off, when he breaks down, so to speak. And so his vision just becomes super clear and his eyes glow. That's fun. Anyway, yeah, it's a great story. And I know that the television show like starts off the same way, with like a guy who's been there and another guy who's like this is his first time. He's a brand new to this sort of adventure, and I don't know where it goes from there because I only watched the first 3 episodes of the television show because it sort of was a little slow, and I'm not real into westerns, and even though this one has all the cool control and the vision and stuff like that and the gunfighter, it's just and so yeah, I didn't watch the other one. There was one in like the 2000s or something, and then there was another one. Oh, the other one's called the sequel to this, I think, is called Future World.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah. So I'm just tracing these lines in the story, but anyway, liked it, and I had uh, I enjoyed the control scenes and the scenes from the perspective of the gunfighter the best because science fiction and because it's fun. Anyway, back over to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Susan. We'll go over to Tim.
Well, one of the fun things about watching an old movie from the 70s is seeing some of the contemporary actors. So it was interesting to see Vince Van Patten. He doesn't have very many lines at all, but he's like the daddy from Eight Is Enough, or would be after this. And then of course you've got Nurse Chapel from Star Trek playing the madam at the house of the prostitutes or whatever. Now that was interesting to see those two pop up.
Gene Roddenberry's wife, yes.
Yeah. So that was fun. I liked the way they filmed it out in the kind of mountainous desert kind of thing. That was pretty interesting too. But yeah, it's a good little film. I think it was in its time it must have been pretty shocking. I mean, it must have been like, wow, this is heavy stuff. That's what I mean. When you watch it today, you're just like, man, this must have been fun back then, but it's nothing new, But yeah, I enjoyed it for what it is. It's a good movie. And as far as Jurassic Park, that's actually a better story in a way because it doesn't date, because you're talking about something from the past. So it's always going to be a good film. It's always going to be interesting. In other words, we're never going to be so far in the future that those are going to become passe like these things do. In other words, if you want to compare the two, you're right, it is the same story. But I mean, that one's always going to be fun because you're talking about deceased creatures. So I mean, it's cool. That's all I got.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, as I say, it is a simple story. And Tim mentioned the word chase. It's a chase story, chase movie. But as I say, for me, it's when the gunslinger is chasing the characters. His eyes are just, I mean, the silver. It must have been contact lenses. It must have been, or the pod mercury in his eyes. I don't know. But some of the scenes, I mean, the scenes where everybody's asleep in the hotels or whatever on a night, and they come round on a night, clearing up all the robots off the streets, made me laugh a bit, because they picked up a horse and shoved that in the back of the van. Yeah, it's. I mean, this mostly would shut down the resort, wasn't it? If this happening. But was everybody killed apart from the one character left? There must have been others left at the end of the story. So I don't know. It's I know Future World. Not
they make it seem as if the control men just suffocated in the basement.
They were running out of oxygen, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, or they were the only ones who survived because they were locked in.
But they did say they were running out of oxygen.
Yeah.
And Richard Benjamin's character was looking through the doorway, and he did look. He looked a bit. He couldn't get in, and he walked away. So you assume that they all perished in that room. But yeah, for me, it's the gunslinger, it's Yul just I don't know what that was. But yeah, Yul Brynner for me makes this movie. Without him in this role, I don't think it would have been as successful. He needed the money. He was short of the money. He took the role, and I can't see anybody else playing that character now in this movie. And you mentioned if there was going to be a reboot in the 80s or whatever, they were talking about Schwarzenegger. I don't think it'd have worked because he'd have just been reprising his role as the Terminator.
Yeah, too similar.
Too similar. So
That's true.
yeah. But for me, it was Brynner what made this movie for me. He's just his aura on the film is just brilliant. So should we go to final sound score? Let's.
Sure.
Susan, over to you.
All right. Well, I'll because of the ambiguous ending and the fun of an ambiguous ending and the and how interesting it must have been. I'm just gonna say must have been. Like must have been is gonna be the way that I grade this. So like if I was seeing this for the first time in '73, before Star Wars, before any of the 2001 or whatever, any of the other robots gone berserk things, I think I'll give this an 8.5, and that is taking it from their perspective. From today, I'd give it about a 7. If this was to come out today, it would be a 7 or less. But just evaluating from the perspective of the '73 audience, I think I'd have to give it an 8.5, and I'd give it 8.5 computer viruses out of 10.
Thank you, Susan. Over to Tim.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not. I mean, it's the kind of movie that you enjoyed as a kid, but it's not one you'd brag about to your kids because they'd be like, "God, this is so old looking." Whereas today you could show your kids Star Wars and they'd go, "Wow, neat." But yeah, I agree. I'd give it like an 8 because I think it holds up pretty good. But basically, you just get nostalgia watching it. Think, oh, I remember this. It was so cool back in the day, when I was 9 or 10. But now it's like, it's it is what it is. But it's still a fun movie. But I guess purely for nostalgic reasons, I suppose. Yeah. So I'll give it an 8.
That's still a good score. Something that's just popped into my head, what I should have mentioned earlier. Why was they using real bullets? Why?
Because the three amigos had been there.
Yeah, but it was just an accident, wasn't it? I mean, if you had a resort full of androids, why use real bullets? I don't know. But anyway, that's one of those things what just went into my head there. Yeah, I agree. By today's standards, it's not up there with all these movies what we get every day of the week now. But back then, as Tim said, he was mostly sat there in awe when you were a 10 or 12-year-old watching this. But it is a fun watch. Little bit dated now, but because of the characterization of the gunslinger, I'm going to give this a 7.75 horses out of 10. So that's our little review of Westworld, the original movie. I'd like to thank Susan and Tim for discussing it with me. You guys out there, please leave a comment. We'd like to know what you thought of the movie. if you like to join our group, just message us and we'll see if we can get you on. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're all over the place. YouTube as well, because you must be watching YouTube. If you want to be notified when we put up a video, please press the bell button and you'll get notified. So until next time, keep your spares clean and be safe. Bye for now.